The Miami Dolphins have missed out on Jaire Alexander. Like I forewarned my Patreons and channel members, they would, as he signs with the Baltimore Ravens. So what is the plan now for the Miami Dolphins? We will talk about that. Also, a little bit of an update on the Jalen Ramsey situation. Sean McVay discussed it, and what he said doesn't sound really that encouraging. So we will cover all of that plus more. Do me the favor, smash the like button, subscribe if you are new, and as always, let's get into this.
Loses the football. Touchdown! Got it! You have got to be kidding me. Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score! Field on the near side, man open. Touchdown! The run from Tua Tagovailoa. Touchdown! He's going deep. He's got it for a touchdown again.
Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go! What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason. We are back here for another one. Appreciate each and every one of you for coming through. Fresh off of last night's victory for the Florida Panthers, and they have now gone back to back. And the dynasty talk has begun for the Florida Panthers. So I know a lot of y'all are happy. All I got to say is, hey, I wanted McDavid to win. And part of me didn't want him to win because I wanted to be able to say what I've been saying the whole series. Crosby would never. Mario Lemieux would never. Geno Malkin would never. All right? So, and Gretzky would never. All right? So, that's, I was rooting for McDavid because, hey, the best player in the world, vindicating himself. That's a nice story. But at the end of the day, I can sit here and say I don't ever want to hear Connor McDavid compared to Sidney Crosby ever again in my life, and that's a beautiful thing for me. I'm not gonna lie, love it. So shout out to the Panthers. I mean, I'm not mad. Hey, they knocked out one of my most hated sports franchises in terms of the Toronto Maple Leafs, so good for them. Hey, knock yourselves out. Let's go. So, and I actually had a conversation with someone about this. See, you aren't really gonna know the impact of the Florida Panthers and really the Tampa Bay Lightning. Remember they went back-to-back a couple years ago, right? You won't know the impact of those wins until 20 years down the line. And you're going to say to me, okay, what do you mean? It's because for those to have a real cultural impact on the game, if you see more players coming out of Florida, and I'll give Crosby as an example. Since Crosby has come to the Pittsburgh Penguins themselves in Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh and Pennsylvania themselves have become one of the core centers for youth hockey, right? If you start seeing these wins, and I'm not even just talking about the Panthers, I'm also talking about the Lightning. If you start seeing players coming out of like Sunrise, Florida, Tampa Bay, Fort Lauderdale, et cetera, and, in 20 years, guys who are in the NHL that have gone through the youth system, that will show the impact of these wins for Florida teams. So it's all about the impact on youth hockey in the next generation. You always want to hope that the Lightning wins and the Florida wins in markets like Florida. The hope is, at least for someone like me who's an avid hockey fan, the hope is it's going to inspire more youth hockey players in Florida, right? That is what you can really tell what the cultural impact. I mean, Gretzky, Lemieux, all these great players go back even to, Bobby Orr and Gordie Howe. They impacted generations of hockey players. And, let's hope guys like Kachuk, can impact U.S. hockey and U.S. hockey youth. And let's hope guys like, Barkov can, he's Finnish, right? Yeah, he can be an idol for more Finnish players coming up through, youth hockey, right? Guys like Reinhardt and Verhaeghe and obviously Sam Bennett. Hopefully they can continue, to play well and inspire more Canadian players to come up. So it's all about what the impact on youth hockey is going to be. That is how you can really, really measure the impact of wins. You know what I mean? So that's where we're at. And hey, man, shout out. Hardest championship in all of sports to win. And they did it back to back. So beautiful. Beautiful stuff. Good for them, man. So, and honestly, personally, I hope hockey becomes bigger for youth hockey in Florida. That would be awesome. Like, we've seen some players come out of California, right? And I mean, that's the Sunshine State. You know what I mean? That's a Sunshine State, not the Sunshine State. That's Florida, but that's also a predominantly Sunshine State with no real winter, right? So, hopefully you continue, hockey growing in the southern states. That's only going to be great for the sport, and that's also only going to expand the sport. So that's what the hope is, at least for someone like me who I got no horse in the race. So I'm just hoping that this impacts youth hockey. That's where I'm at, man. That'd be beautiful. That'd be beautiful stuff. So, but shout out to them, man. Shout out to them. I was there. Listen, I watched this series. I watched that playoff run when the Rats came out in 96, because if you remember, they beat the Pittsburgh Penguins in the Eastern Conference Finals. And, I'll say this. I know the Panthers lost in the Stanley Cup, but man, that Penguin team was so good. They were perfectly matched for that Stanley Cup final. And sucks they didn't get there, because I honestly think they were just, I honestly felt they were a better team. They were better suited and better built from lines 1 through 4 to take on that Colorado Avalanche team that obviously eventually beat, the Florida Panthers in, it was a sweep too, if I remember correctly, right? It was a sweep too, if I remember correctly. The Panthers got swept. So, but that was the start. That was the start of Florida hockey, man, and the Rat movement. And I remember that very vividly, to be honest with you. Raging asks, they shouldn't. Did no one remember how bad the attendance was for the Thrashers? A team should go back. If we're going back to an old market, go back to Quebec. If you're going back to an old market, go back to Quebec. I think Quebec might get a team before Atlanta. I think Atlanta getting a team again, I think that's nonsense. I mean, do we all remember the Thrashers? First of all, how ugly that logo was. Second of all, how ugly those jerseys were. And I mean, other than Ilya Kovalchuk and Marian Hossa, I mean, what really came out of the Atlanta Thrashers organization? That was a crap show from the beginning. I wouldn't put a team back in Atlanta. That doesn't make sense to me. Now, I do think I think they're gonna hit it out of the park with Utah. I think Seattle too. They're gonna end up hitting it out of the park. Utah, man, I wish they could have had that Yeti name. Oh man, if not for Yeti coolers, the Yeti cooler drinks, they actually are who blocked Utah from getting the Yeti name. Utah Mammoth it's okay. The logo's sick, but yeah, I think that's going to be a good hockey market. You know what I mean? Give us a Russian team, man. The Russians aren't even allowed in the Olympics, brother. They ain't getting no team. I'm pretty sure they're not allowed in the 2026 Olympics again. So, not going to lie, never liked hockey personally. Hey, man, it's not for everyone. It is the fastest sport on earth, though, man. I mean, You know, I think I've always been of this. I think hockey players and football players should be the highest paid players in sports. Like, look at the tolls this takes on their body. You know what I mean? Like, man, it's heavy. You know, you got hockey players and you got football players that can only get through their 30s and into their 40s on paid meds. You know what I mean? Like, see, this is a problem. This is a problem with hockey, right? Like, this is the issue with hockey. It's the equipment. That is what has really stunted the youth hockey movement. It's the equipment. Like, especially when you go to rep. Like, I played rep hockey growing up, right? Like, I'm going to tell you this. I was on the ice from the age of 4 till 14. I was on the ice 5 or 6 times a week. All right. Like, you know, my brother was, if you go look up at the GTHL, my brother was a leading scorer in the GTHL. And just, you know, he's playing for a team, the Don Mills Flyers, where right now Don Mills is pumping out, you know, about 70% of the roster gets drafted into the OHL. Now my nephew is on his way up and he's actually playing, you know, he's actually working towards a a scholarship in the NCAA. So, but anyways, you know, listen, that was the problem, you know, especially when you're in rep. You got to pay for tournaments, right? Plus travel and food. Plus you got to pay, you know, the fee just to play. You know, you need skates every 2 years. The big issue is when guys get new equipment you can see. So what I mean by that is like helmets, gloves, sticks, and skates. Stuff you can visually see. When other players on your team, and this happens with every kid, when other players on your team get something new and shiny, everyone else wants it. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. I was the first one in my league to have the Fedorovs. Okay, if you don't know what the Fedorovs were, they were the all-white Sergei Fedorov Nike skates. Yes, Nike used to make skates. And I even remember the first game because I played center or right wing. And I remember the first game I played, I went up to the face-off circle and literally on the opposing team, the guy looks down and says, "Nice skates." And the ref, before he drops the puck, goes, yeah, nice skates. Like, and then that became the thing. Everyone wanted Nike skates. The same thing is sticks, right? Everyone wants new sticks, graphite, whatever the case may be is. And the problem is, you know, those sticks, especially if you break them, you always need backups, right? You need at least 2 or 3 backup sticks, usually on the bench, in case you're going to break one. You're talking about $100 plus a pop up here for a really high-end stick, right? So it adds up. It's one of the most expensive sports to play. Why do you think in Europe and so many third world countries, you know, you get everyone playing soccer? Because all you need is a ball. You don't even need cleats, really. And if you do need cleats, it's an investment of what? 40, 50, 60 bucks? That's it. You know? So it's just the same with basketball. You just pick up a basketball, you know, doesn't matter what sneakers you're wearing, and you can go hit the court. But when you start getting into sports like hockey and even, you know, football, but usually it's team provided equipment for football. But, you know, other than the jock, but when you start getting into those sports, they do cost a little bit more money with equipment and stuff like that, right? So people don't think about that. And then I'm telling you, every 2 years, and think about it, not even if your kid doesn't want new stuff, just because of his growth, you're gonna have to buy new shoulder pads, right? New knee pads. Well, you know, shin guards, knee pads, same thing, right? You know, you're gonna have to buy elbow pads, right? You know, like you're gonna have to buy new hockey pants. You know, like it all adds up. So yeah, it's an expensive sport. That's what holds a lot of people back, is the money it costs. So sucks. But a few things I didn't want to talk about with you guys and gals, all right, for today. Number one, who saw what happened with Shedeur Sanders? All right. You know, who saw what happened with Shedeur Sanders? Raise your hand. But before we do, I do want to shout out someone who's in the chat right now, and that is the Mad Greek from FinSpin. He hit me up. He emailed me. He said, yo, check out my video. He's trying to do, listen, I always say, This is the most oversaturated, one of the most oversaturated markets there is in podcasting. When you're new, when you're innovative, when you're doing something different, I encourage that. I'll promote that. So I want you guys to all go do me a favor. Go subscribe to FinSpin on YouTube. I've got the link in the chat right now. Go show them some love. Go get them some subscribers. I'll pin it to the top here. Go show them some love. Go get a subscriber count a little bit. Go show them a little bit of the power of the Phinside fam. Now I know we're, in the lull of the season, so this is probably the worst time to promote, but still got to show love. So shout out to the Mad Greek. Go show some love to FinSpin on YouTube. It's going to be a different spin on Miami Dolphins, and you're going to want to check it out. All right, go show him some love. Go show him support. He's a former writer and journalist, so you're going to get good content, right? And it's going to be well written. So go check him out, all right? Now, Shedeur Sanders. What happened with Shedeur, says the raging Dolphins maniac. All right? Shedeur Sanders was pulled over Tuesday morning for driving over 100 miles per hour at 12:24 a.m. So, Shedeur Sanders, here we go. Already, it could be worse, but, man, what did it take? All right, you got drafted at the end of April. Took you 2 months. Was he late? Late to what? It was 12:24 a.m. Was he late to a booty call? What was he late towards? What? Did Daddy Dion want him home by a certain time and he was late for curfew? I don't know. But, going over 100 miles per hour. Man. And this is what's crazy about this. And this is why he's got to take it a little bit more seriously. Albert Breer, he was on X today, and he actually said something kind of interesting about the whole situation, right? He was talking about Dillon Gabriel and where this is all at and everything with Shedeur. And if you see what he said, what he basically said was, the reason why Dillon Gabriel's getting all this work and getting pushed to the front, it's because basically Shedeur Sanders, he had a lot more ground to cover than Dillon Gabriel in terms of the learning curve, right? Apparently in the pre-draft process and everything, another reason why Shedeur fell and a guy like Dillon Gabriel went in the third was that apparently Shedeur Sanders wasn't up to speed on NFL concepts, despite having guys like Deion Sanders and Pat Schumer coaching him. So that was, he said there were teams that were stunned by how little Shedeur knew relative to what they thought. He was pretty far behind. So this is why you've seen Shedeur practicing separate from the other quarterbacks, and they're trying to get him as many practice reps as possible against the backups. Because apparently Shedeur Sanders, from a learning standpoint, he was really far behind. So this is why, Shedeur Sanders can't afford to be doing this kind of stuff when you're already coming in behind from a NFL concept standpoint. When you're already behind the rest of the quarterback room, which includes another rookie, this is why you can't be doing this stuff, man. And his team needs to tell him that and let him know that. You got to be on your best behavior right now. And speaking of, cars and high speeds, it's been on my mind. Are the Miami Dolphins, I don't even want to put this on the universe, but I'm going to. Does anyone else have a feeling? I don't know if you've seen. Henry Ruggs looked like he's trying to make, Henry Ruggs looks like he's trying to make a bit of a comeback here. And, Why do I got a feeling that the Dolphins, why do I got a feeling that guys like Tua and Jalen are going to vouch for like Henry Ruggs? Like give him a chance. He's fast. You love speed. Like why do I get the feeling? Why do I get the feeling that we're going to be one of the teams that gives him another shot? And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. Apparently, during his time in jail, he was a stand-up, citizen, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, the kid made a terrible, awful mistake that took a life. Someone's going to give him a second chance, and I don't know him well enough to say whether he's earned it or not. None of us do, unless you're his friend or, you're his PO or whatever, right? So I don't know what I just got a feeling that you're going to have certain Alabama guys lobbying for him, and I wouldn't be shocked due to the speed and everything. Now, here's the thing. He's been away from the game for so long. We've seen guys be away from the game and come back, and it just ain't pretty. Mike Vick was kind of a rarity, right? But he also became more of a pocket quarterback under Andy Reid and such than relying just purely on his athleticism and such. So, Deshaun Watson wasn't in prison, but he was away for the game for a little bit, and look at what he's been. Now, schematically, the Browns haven't done him very many favors. I get that. But at the same time, doesn't look like the guy he was in Houston, right? So, I don't know. I don't know. But another thing, too, former college player with a bad rap, and another, was Damon Arnett. I don't know if you guys saw this, but I know people had been suggesting the Dolphins take a flyer on Damon Arnett. That's how desperate people are getting that we get a cornerback. They want, Instagram gun toters on this team, and guys who, just a year and a bit ago, he got pulled over, and charged with the possession of a firearm and a car. So it's not like he's learned his lesson, but Damon Arnett signed with the Houston Texans. So good luck to the Texans on that. Let me know how that one works out. So, but hey, getting more chances. I just got a feeling we're gonna give Henry Ruggs a shot, or we're gonna be one of the teams willing. Let me phrase it that way. That's a better way to phrase it. We're gonna be one of the teams willing to give Henry Ruggs a shot. I got a feeling. I don't know why. I just do. So we'll see how that all plays out. Anyways, all right, let's get into this. So just a little bit ago, earlier this afternoon, Eric DeCosta listened to Lamar Jackson. The Baltimore Ravens announced on Wednesday they have signed former Green Bay Packers cornerback Jaire Alexander. NFL Network insider Mike Garofalo reported that the one-year contract is for $4 million with $2 million in incentives per a source informed of the deal. The incentive packages include playtime bonuses, Garofalo added. $500,000 each for hitting 35, 40, 45, and 50% of team snaps. He's excited to be here. We're excited to have him. Head coach John Harbaugh told reporters it made Lamar happy. It made everybody happy. This move came a day after Jackson publicly stumped for the Ravens general manager to bring his former Louisville teammate from 2015 to 2017. So, and I'm going to get to the donations in a second here, okay? I see them popped up, but I'll get to Russell and the recent donation we just had from Smarty Jams. So before we do, though, listen, a couple things here. Patrons and channel members, I told each and every one of you, it was more likely they were going to go Rasul Douglas or Asante Samuel than pursue Jaire Alexander. And sure enough, this is what happens. What's funny enough, too, is actually back in, I want to say, let me find the exact date here for you guys. Back on May 28th, I had an update regarding Ramsey, and I knew that the Ravens were sniffing around Jalen Ramsey a little bit, meaning they were, sniffing around the cornerback market. So I'm actually not overly shocked that the Ravens added Jaire. Now, before the fans start, it was only $6 million, including incentives. Why didn't they get it done? If you go look at an early report today, I believe it's from Schefter, I want to say. He said, I'll double check if it's from Schefter, but I'm pretty sure it was Schefter. What he had said was that Jaire Alexander, he turned down more from other teams. That's the fact of the matter. He turned down more from other teams. And because he turned down more from other teams, you know, it's what I kept saying, right? Like, the feeling was he wanted to go to, you know, I even said in that Patreon and channel member update, he wanted to go to a team that was considered more of a contender. That's just the fact of the matter. And it was Schefter, by the way. Schefter said he turned down more to be in Baltimore with his former college teammate Lamar Jackson. So, even if they offered more, he wasn't coming to Miami on a 1-year, $4 million deal with $2 million of incentives on top. It just wasn't going to happen. Now, if we were viewed as a contender that's super close, maybe. But we aren't. You see, the media's down on us. Fans are down on them. You know, players are clearly down on them. Reality of the situation. Jaire was never, ever going to be coming here after he got released. And the Dolphins, there's a couple factors on top of what I just named. One being, they got a certain budget in mind for what they want to spend on that position. Think about it. All right? Think about it for 1 second. We know they've made a contract offer to Rasul Douglas. Rasul Douglas has a little bit of an injury history. So why do you think they made a contract offer? Right? Asante Samuel. Same thing. Supposed to be cleared in July, right? They think they can get him on a cheaper deal. Why? Injury history. Jaire Alexander has an injury history, but he was clearly the most talented player on the market, meaning out of all of them, he was probably going to see the most money. And listen, sometimes fans get caught up, you know, in names. And I get that. But at the end of the day, the fact of the matter is this. It was never going to make sense unless we overpaid. And they weren't going to overpay. Right? That's just where we're at. You know? So, listen. I think they're going to try to add Rasul Douglas or Asante Samuel. That's just where they are. And Barry Jackson even had a little bit of an update on Jaire Alexander and everything that went down. So let's look at what he said, okay? So this is what he said regarding the Jaire Alexander situation in the Dolphins. Per source, Dolphins ended up calling on Jaire Alexander but didn't feel comfortable making a competitive offer yet until it can trade Ramsey. Alexander didn't want to wait on anything after getting an opportunity with Baltimore, where he agreed to terms today on a 1-year, $4 million deal with another $2 million in incentives. So there you go. Jalen Ramsey continues to hold up the situation. Now, what's kind of crazy about this is this. The Miami Dolphins have like over $13 million in cap space. I mean, technically, you really don't need to wait on Ramsey. But what does this tell you? If they were going to get him for $4 million with $2 million in incentives, you really think they would have waited for Ramsey? Like, do you really think if it was, they made an offer to Rasul Douglas and Jalen Ramsey's still on the roster. So if they felt they needed to wait for Ramsey to leave before they made an offer, I don't know. I'm no mathematician, but 1 + 1 = 2. And that obviously clearly means it was a little bit more than $4 million. Just saying. So, I mean, you know, why make an offer on Rasul Douglas with Jalen Ramsey on the roster, but not willing to make an offer to Jaire Alexander with Rasul on the roster? Kind of makes no sense unless Jaire was looking for a little bit more money. So, you know, we just got to wait and see what they do here. Listen, there's a portion of our fan base that'll be happy if they bring in Rasul Douglas or Asante Samuel, both of them, or they trade for someone, they manage to strike a deal. Maybe that'll be, good. But I don't know. To me, that just says that it goes back to what Schefter reported, right? It literally just goes back to that. Jaire Alexander turned down more money elsewhere to come to Baltimore. So, and that's a stacked corner room, might I add. All right? That's a stacked cornerback room, might I add. Now, all right. So, what's the deal and where are we going here with Jalen Ramsey? If he's holding up this trade, what's the latest on him? Well, from LosAngelesRams.com, nothing to report on Ramsey. Not much has changed in terms of a possible reacquisition of Ramsey, though Tuesday was the first time McVay indicated there may be too many obstacles to make that happen. Usually, those are scenarios and situations that you have to have plans in place prior to executing some of the decisions that have occurred. Definitely don't want to rule anything out because we're always open-minded to onboarding and acquiring quality players and people like him if we're able to do that. But there would be some obstacles that are real that are in the place of maybe preventing that from occurring. So he signed, Jaire Alexander signed with the Ravens for $4 million plus $2 million in incentives, so we can get up to $6 million. It's playtime incentives, the extra $2 million. So right there, McVay talks about that there's obstacles. I'm going to tell you, number one is what? The paycheck. No one wants to pay this guy $20+ million. We kind of hemmed ourselves into a corner last year by giving him that new money. Okay, that's number one. Number two, he's not open to a full-time move to safety. Now, do the Rams plan to use him in the star role like they did when he was there? I don't know. But if they're planning on using him as safety, he's not open to that. So that's not going to go well. That conversation's not going to go well. At all. So, this is the first time we've kind of heard McVay be a little doubtful on the opportunity or the chance of acquiring him. And not only do you got to acquire that contract, he's got void years on his deal, so he's probably going to want new money, which comes back to why he doesn't want to transition to safety. He wants to be paid like a corner. If you're going to pay him like a corner to play safety, I bet you wouldn't have to twist his arm very much to make the full-time conversion. So, I don't know. We will see what happens with Jalen Ramsey. I mean, we're all looking for resolution to this situation, and we're all hoping it comes real soon. But the fact of the matter is this. The days keep dragging on, and this has got to get done before training camp starts. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Just get this done. And I get it. Like at the end of the day, they don't want to be fleeced. Right? Like that's what we're also coming down from the Dolphins side. They don't want to be fleeced. And, it's about compensation. Right? They want good, decent compensation. And they don't want to have to pay the majority of his salary. They're even cringing at the money. So there you go. Moving on here. People keep hammering home this rebuilding narrative for the Dolphins. And the question is, are the Dolphins trying to build a contender or are in the midst of a quiet rebuild? So, gone are the days of the Miami Dolphins being connected to available stars from other teams. Now, they're the ones placing notable veterans on the block, including Ramsey and Jonnu Smith. There are even rumors about Tyreek Hill's future in Miami. Everything the Dolphins did this offseason suggests they're more interested in getting younger, not looking to add expensive contracts. The opposite of how they operated in the first 3 years of the Mike McDaniel era. Miami let safety Javon Holland leave in free agency and could now have the worst secondary in the league, at least on paper, if they do indeed move Jalen Ramsey. The offensive line also took a hit after the retirement of left tackle Teron Armstead. After a few years of contention, the Dolphins are now being overlooked in the loaded AFC. However, this could be the year McDaniel gets more physicality from his team and Tua Tagovailoa finds another gear quarterback. So what's at stake this season? Tagovailoa's job security. Tagovailoa still needs to prove himself after signing a lucrative 4-year, $212.4 million contract extension last summer, but there seems to be a shift in how the Dolphins want to operate, showing signs of an organization on the verge of rebuilding. There's no longer the aggressive team that traded for Ramsey, Bradley, Chubb, and Hill in recent years. They're a team looking to shed contracts to repair the salary cap after missing the postseason last year and during another season with Tagovailoa missing games due to injury. With Ramsey on the trading block and rumors about Hill's future, the organization could be paying close attention to how Tagovailoa elevates his game and teammates during an awkward transition year for the roster. Tagovailoa continues to struggle against contenders and again deals with injuries. Perhaps a full rebuild will occur by next summer. If the 2020 first-round pick turns Miami to a surprise playoff team, maybe that's enough to convince a franchise that can be an elite quarterback. No one will question his job security if Tagovailoa guides the Dolphins to their first playoff win in 25 years. Biggest question heading into camp, will the edge rushers be available? The Dolphins desperately need their talented edge rushers to carry an inexperienced secondary if Ramsey ends up getting traded. It was a good sign that Chubb participated in practice this offseason, but it might take time to regain his top form after missing the entire 2024 season due to significant injuries in his right knee. Same can be said about Jalen Phillips, who's recovering from an ACL tear last season. On the bright side, Chop Robinson could have a breakout season after an impressive rookie year. Still, this defense is going to need more than one star playmaker to put less pressure on its suspect secondary. Perhaps rookie first-round defensive tackle Kenneth Grant can make an immediate impact. Sources are saying many question marks in Miami. Will Tua play 17 games? The offensive line must improve. Pass rushers must stay healthy. There's a brand new secondary. Lots of question marks need to be answered, said an NFL defensive coach. Their breakout candidate player is Devon Achane. And the head coach quarterback tandem ranking is 20th. They said Miami has made the playoffs in 2 of the past 3 years, but the Dolphins have not had a postseason win since 2000, putting pressure on Tagovailoa and McDaniel. Miami's roster is declining, and this could be Tyreek's final year. Tagovailoa needs to elevate those around him, while McDaniel has to figure out how to win games with multiple glaring holes on the roster. And they got their fantasy picks. Hill. So they got Hill as, they think he's going to bounce back coming off of a disappointing year. And then they said, they say all that to say this. Take the over. Say they're a year removed from making the playoffs, but fans and odds makers are completely discounting them in 2025. Team managed to go 8-9 a season. Tagovailoa played only 11 games while ranking 20th in net yards per play. They have a healthy quarterback in one of the 10 easiest schedules. With better offensive play calling, some improvements on defense, the Dolphins have a chance to reach at least 9 wins. So they talk all that smack just to tell you to take the over. So, I'd take the over. They're at least going to win 9 games for sure. 110% they're going to win at least 9 games. I have no doubt in my mind. So, in case you didn't have a chance to see it, all right, the Miami Dolphins, their basic schedule here for the joint practices is released, okay? And you can see here, 8-8, Miami and Chicago at 8-8. So August 8th, for all of you in Chicago that want to see Miami. Miami will then be in Detroit on the 13th of August. All right, and apparently that starts around like 1 p.m., I think. And then obviously we rounded up on right here at the bottom, Jacksonville and in Miami on August 21st. And that is what I am aiming for going to. So that is what I think that is what the plan is in my mind right now, is that. All right. So let's get into, I had a few donations. I want to go over those. All right. Shout out to Russell. Said Friday will mark 4 years since you really were there for me through the roughest time of my life. Wow, man. June 20th, 2021. RIP Danny. Salute reason. Thank you, brother. For all of you who don't know what Russell is talking about, Russell lost his children. One of his children, his son, 4 years ago in a tragic car accident. And there was just a bunch of, I don't want to get into details of it, but because it's not my place to speak about the details of it. But man, if you knew the details of the situation, no father, no parent should ever have to go through what Russell went through, especially, it's tough to talk about because I don't want to talk too much about it. It's just not my place, but let's just say this. Russell is a damn fine parent, a damn good parent. The other parent of Danny, the mother, was not so much. And let's be quite frank, I know Russell will support this, bears a lot of responsibility for what happened to Russell's son and gave Russell nothing but headaches when you, the Dolphin fans, all of you showed up and showed out and were donating to Russell's GoFundMe to help support the funeral for his son. And, it was just a terrible situation, and no father should ever have to go through that. So, man, shout out to you, Russell, and shout out to Danny. I know he's looking down on you. I know he's, I know he's proud you were his dad, my friend, and I'm proud to call you a friend. So, man, my heart goes out to you, man. You know me. You got my contact. If you need anything from me, brother, just reach out. All right. Smarty Jams. You know what's funny about you saying jam, dude? I was watching Spaceballs yesterday, and when they jam the radar, that's what I think of when I saw your name. Do you think we can lean on anticipation and timing in playoff when things are less predictable, or do we have to pray and play for home field? Let me tell you something. I would be praying for home field even if we had Josh Allen at our quarterback. That's just a fact of the matter of where we're at as an organization, right? We haven't won for 25 years. Tua has been here since 2020. We haven't won a playoff game in 25 years. All right? We've had Ricky Williams come through and win MVPs. We've had Tyreek play out of his mind, right? We invented the Wildcat. We didn't invent it, but you know what I mean? We brought it to the NFL. I mean, the fact of the matter is this, okay? It didn't matter who the quarterback is. You could have Lamar Jackson. I would be praying for home field advantage just because I don't trust the organization. Jeez. Now, I think what happens is no. I think you can lean on anticipation and timing and playoff weather. The fact of the matter is, teams are going to try and take away the things you do best. So if we get Achane in the running game on point this year, they're going to try and take the running game. You see, they try to keep you, they force you to stay in structure a lot more, right? Like you see what happens with Lamar and all these guys with athleticism. They want to keep you in structure and have you beat them from the pocket. Majority of the time in the playoffs, if you can win from the pocket and you can run the football, you'll be fine offensively. Man, we'll figure it out. I'm trying to come out for Jacksonville, and I'm going to try and come down for a game this year. So we'll figure it out, my friend. Don't worry. We'll figure something out. All right, guys, smash that like button. Subscribe if you are new. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. with Neil for Fin Too Deep. So make sure you tune in for that. And until then, you already know what time it is. Fins up all day, every day. Appreciate y'all, and I'll see you on the next one.